Coming up on Talking Points, top New York Democrats gathered in Syracuse on Friday. Who was nominated for this year's elections?
Plus, no winner has been declared yet in last week's special Democratic primary for a New Jersey House seat. How polls are looking.
And President Trump speaks out against Bad Bunny's halftime performance at the Super Bowl. All that and more. Talking Points starts right now. Good evening and welcome into Talking Points. I'm Alex Burstein.
And I'm Andrea-Rose. The Puerto Rican singer has been outspoken as a critic of the Trump administration. Just days ago at the Grammy Awards, he declared ICE out while accepting an award for Album of the Year. At last night's game, he went on to name countries both across North and South America. He held a football with the words, "Together we are America," at the end of his performance.
In a long post on Truth Social, President Trump said the show was, quote, absolutely terrible. He added that it doesn't represent our standards. He called it a slap in the face to the country. President Trump said Bad Bunny's lyrics were unintelligible to most, despite Spanish being the second most common language spoken besides English in the U.S. Around 42 million people in the country speak Spanish, which is about 13% of the population. The conservative group Turning Point USA offered a counter halftime show streaming on YouTube with Kid Rock and other artists that support the Trump administration. It was called the All-American Halftime Show and held in honor of its co-founder, Charlie Kirk.
In response to a racist video posted on President Donald Trump's Truth Social account, the president told reporters he did not see the entire video before it was posted. The brief clip shared last week pushed conspiracies about the 2020 election. The video depicted the Obama's faces on the bodies of cartoon apes. When asked about the video, this was his response.
I didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things, and I looked at the beginning of it. It was fine. It was a very strong post in terms of voter fraud. Nobody knew that was at the end. If they would have looked, they would have seen it.
Later on Friday afternoon, a White House official told ABC News that a staffer erroneously made the post. In response, the post is being condemned by lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Republican Senator Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate, posted on X, praying it was fake because it's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. The president should remove it. Republican Senator Roger Wicker wrote in a post, "This is totally unacceptable. The president should take it down and apologize."
To the latest with the Epstein files, Ghislaine Maxwell, who is currently serving 20 years in prison for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to abuse minors, sent a clear message to President Trump earlier today. Maxwell's lawyers stated that if the president were to grant her clemency, she would clear his name of any wrongdoings as it pertains to Epstein. He wrote, quote, only she can provide the complete account. Some may not like what they hear, but the truth matters. President Trump and former President Bill Clinton, who appear throughout the files, have denied any wrongdoings related to Epstein. Trump has not ruled out the possibility of ordering Maxwell a pardon. Back to Syracuse, the New York Democratic Convention was right here in Onondaga County on Friday, where notable Democrats were nominated for the upcoming midterm election.
Some names included Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, Attorney General Letitia James, and Governor Kathy Hochul. Our very own Boone Kilpatrick was at the on-center for the convention.
Today in Syracuse, the mood in the convention hall was powerful and forceful as Sharon Owens took the stage to endorse Letitia James.
I will run through a wall, Letitia James.
Case in point. Throughout the afternoon, the Democratic Party of New York made it clear they were determined to strike back at President Trump come November.
When Donald Trump thought New York's laws did not apply to him, Tish James said, "Oh no," and stood firm.
As President Trump makes attacks against the safety of Democrat states, James made it clear she would be tough on crime.
From Queens to the Finger Lakes, my office has been cleaning up organized crime.
The rhetoric was clear. The candidates would not lie down in the face of attacks from Trump, including nominee for Lieutenant Governor Adrian Adams.
I listened to my
my mentor, my big sister, the best attorney general that this world has ever seen, Tish James. She said, Adrian, if Donald Trump comes after you, sue him. We sued him, and we won.
Governor Hochul won the nomination over current Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado with 85% of the vote. In her speech, she made it clear how important the coming election was.
We still have tough battles ahead, and I will say this, that arena has changed. The hits are harder. The cost of losing is greater. And we know what this moment demands of us. It's asking whether we're going to fall backwards or march forward.
The confetti fell, marking the beginning of what many suspect to be a coming blue wave amidst a tumultuous first year to President Trump's second term. It was a historic day here in the Salt City. Syracuse hosted the Democratic convention for the state for the first time in 41 years. And for the first time in state history, the governorship has an all-female ticket. Governor Hochul accepted her nomination and will look to defend the governorship come November. For CitrusTV, I'm Boone Kilpatrick.
Great coverage from Boone on a momentous day in Syracuse. And I think, Andy, it's really interesting how even in these state and local elections, the common opponent for the Democrats isn't the Republican on the ticket, but they're making it President Trump, something we saw a couple in the midterms a couple years ago.
Right, and it's also interesting, Alex, to hear about this all-female ticket. I mean, that gets me excited for sure. But, you know, to hearing the progress that's definitely being made, and obviously Sheridan Oates, working diligently with her cabinet to ensure that there is progress not only within the city of Syracuse, but also the state as a whole.
Definitely a lot of changes in the Empire State. Well, staying local tonight, 2 current Clay board members are running for the town's supervisor position. Democrat David Capria and Republican Joe Bick are going head-to-head this November after longtime supervisor Damian Ulatowski said he is not seeking re-election. Clay is the county's largest town and home to Micron's new memory chip facility. Currently, there are 3 counselors of each party on the board, with the supervisor as the tiebreaker. No other town councilor seat is up for re-election this November.
Congressman John Mannion announced he is joining calls for the Department of Homeland Security to apply a blanket exception to the new H-1B filing fee for healthcare workers. The visa program allows employers to hire qualified temporary workers with specialized skill-based knowledge. In September, a presidential proclamation issued a mandate that every H-1B petition must pay a $100,000 filing fee. The previous fee was around $400 to $1,000. 2 blue states are allowed new redistricting plans. Hear how this could help Democrats during November's elections after the break.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sadie Miller.
My name is Luke Brady. I go by St. Luke.
So this one I started with this guitar lick.
Welcome back to Talking Points. In the latest battle over redistricting, President Donald Trump's demand that Republican-led states redraw their congressional maps has triggered a national response. Talking Points analyst Sheridan joins us for the first time and is here with more on how Democratic state governments are reacting. Sheridan, how are these new maps looking?
Yeah, Alex, the Supreme Court is allowing California to use new voter-approved congressional maps in upcoming midterm elections. The decision from the High Court clears the way for California to use newly drawn lines for most of its 52 House districts. California voters backed a ballot measure known as Proposition 50 back in November, but shortly after, voters approved the map. A group of California Republicans filed a lawsuit alleging that the voter boundaries were unconstitutional. But a panel of 3 federal judges upheld the map, finding that California lawmakers were motivated by politics, not race, when they drew the districts. Now, this battle, originally sparked by President Trump, has created a nationwide response from states, including Texas, Virginia, and California, as mentioned, to create their own maps. The Supreme Court allowed Texas to use congressional maps in favor of Republicans for 2026. However, lower courts ruled that the Texas map is discriminatory on race and economics. Virginia proposed congressional maps Thursday that could possibly eliminate a Republican Virginia district before midterm elections. Just last month, a Virginia state judge issued an order blocking legislation that would allow lawmakers to draw new maps for 2026 congressional elections. Democrats appealed, and the decision currently sits before the Supreme Court. Now, California Governor Gavin Newsom took to social media saying Trump had started this redistricting war, and the winner ultimately gets majority of control in Congress. Members of the Supreme Court believe that both states' new redistricting maps are created for their own respective political advantage.
Well, Sheridan, sounds like a lot of back and forth right now. Why are these states responding to each other's redistricting decisions?
Well, Alex, states are increasingly responding to each other's redistricting decisions as part of a redistricting arms race. If one state changes its maps in a way that benefits a certain side, other states feel inclined to counter and adjust their own maps to protect or even strengthen their party representation. That's exactly what we're seeing here with Texas, California, and now Virginia jumping in as well.
And Sheridan, what concerns do lower courts raise when they say maps may be discriminatory?
Yeah, the lower courts see if district lines unfairly disadvantage groups based on race or economic status, which could violate voting rights protection and equal representation. It becomes likely that concerns over fairness will increase skepticism among voters, but court oversight could reassure some people that legal checks and balances are in place. The Trump administration argues against California's maps that the new boundaries were intended to benefit Latino voters. In response, Newsom and California's Secretary of State, Shirley Weber, pointed out that the number of Latino majority districts would not change under the new lines. Courts have generally held that gerrymandering is legal if the lines are not drawn based on race, which is the case in California.
Now, a lot of this still hangs in the balance of the courts, but how could ongoing legal challenges affect upcoming elections if each state does successfully get its congressional maps passed that favor its own political party?
If each of these proposed maps get passed, we could see future elections become less competitive and more predictable. Court rulings could delay or change district boundaries, creating uncertainty for candidates and voters about where and how elections will take place. If each state drew maps to favor its own political party, many districts would strongly lean toward one party, reducing opportunities for close races and limiting voter choice. This could increase political polarization and cause some voters to feel less represented or less motivated to participate in their elections.
Sheridan, thank you so much. Sticking with big election news, progressives are feeling good right now with a stronger than expected showing of a left-wing outsider in a New Jersey congressional primary. With results yet to be called, making his Talking Points debut, analyst Garlock joins us with how this outcome developed.
Thanks so much, Alex. Last November, New Jersey seemed to have election season all figured out, with the Democratic representative, Mikey Sherrill, expected to win the governor's seat in a landslide. And while the margin wasn't as big as was expected, the result sure was, elevating Sherrill from the House of Representatives to the Senate. However, this isn't like the presidency, where if the higher position resigns, the next will move up to take their place. Instead, a special election is currently being held in the 11th District of New Jersey. This election will be the same as the usual elections for House members. Each party is submitting their candidate, and those candidates will be voted upon. The winner will assume office for the remainder of Sherrill's term until this November. Now, the Republican Party has already submitted their candidate, as Joe Hathaway ran uncontested for the position. The Democrats are having a little bit more of an issue. With over 90% of the votes already in, there's still not a clear winner. Both Tom Malinowski and Ana Mejia are sitting at the top of the count, within 800 votes of each other per NBC. The craziest part of this primary is that this election was never supposed to be this close. Malinowski was the heavy favorite coming into the election, and after the first 2 days, the election was actually called by most news sources in favor of Malinowski. But surging back, Mejia has made the unprecedented climb to the top and holds a lead of just barely 1% over her opponent. Her rise comes on the heels of a $4 million slander campaign from the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee. This campaign was made to push Tahisha way to the top, but instead it backfired and made Mejia's progressive campaign seem all the more appealing to voters.
Sean now joins us at the desk. Thank you so much for being here with us. So my first question for you, Tom Malinowski was considered the clear favorite going into this election. What factors do you think might have led to this early lead, and why did that advantage evaporate so quickly?
Well, he was seen as the heavy favorite because he's been a representative in New Jersey before. He was the representative of New Jersey's 7th district, which was one of their larger districts in the state. And so a lot of people saw a familiar name. They thought he was going to run away with it in a landslide. However, AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, decided to push a slander campaign after words from Malinowski were said that we don't want to just blindly throw money towards Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. That a slander campaign tended to weaken his representation among a lot of the voters in New Jersey, and a lot of people weren't so much as pro-Israel as AIPAC was expecting, so people kind of found themselves in the middle, not so much as Tahisha Way and not really much as Malinowski, but they found Mejia.
I mean, it's kind of crazy how many swings we've seen, not only entering the election, but even in this week since the votes started to get tallied. When's a possible time we could see an actual result get called?
Right now, we really don't know. I mean, there's about an 800 vote difference between both of them, and there's over 4,000 votes left to count. So it could be any time. It could be tonight if a big wave comes in. It could be sometime tomorrow. We really have no idea, because some people think that with Mejia's recent surge, she could run away with it in the next few hours. Others think since Malinowski was so heavily favored at the beginning, and there's still a lot of mail-in votes, we don't know where the votes are going to swing. We do know Tahisha Way is out of it, so that we can kind of safely assume.
I do think it's a very interesting political question. This is a district that's been very Democratic for years, but Kamala Harris won it by just 8 points. Won it by just 8 points last year. Should this go to a far left candidate in Mejia, is there any chance this could flip to a Republican seat?
As much as it would be very interesting to see, I really don't think so. Most of the major news sources around the country are kind of penciling this in as a Democratic win, regardless of who gets elected, whether it be Malinowski, as was expected originally, or Mejia after her recent push to the top. Thing is, it's more than likely going to be Mejia pushing for that chair, because when Malinowski's slander campaign came out, she was all in on the grassroots campaign. She really wanted to connect to the people of New Jersey, whether that be the issues like the environmental issues, like their lead in the water has been a big issue in that district, the aging infrastructure and the lack of affordable housing, as well as New Jersey is an aging state. A lot of their workforce is slowly pushing above the median age, and they need help to kind of get through. They need help to get through each year. So her grassroots campaign really propelled her to the top. But right now, we still don't know exactly who is going to win this election. We don't know really anything other than the fact that whoever does come out of this is more than likely going to take Mikey Sherrill's place as the representative in the 11th district.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us. The vote's still ticking, but maybe by next week we will have a winner. After a quick break, former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is planning to make a big endorsement for a House seat up for grabs in New York. Find out who when Talking Points returns.
women are bad with money.
It's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now,
we've got something to say.
Save it. Save the old-fashioned advice, the empty excuses.
It's all worthless, unlike us.
To our fellow females, it is time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Contributing to our futures, investing in our independence.
Until we're no longer
80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So again, we say to that, save it.
The falsehoods, the feelings of fault, then the funds.
Learn how to save for your retirement at wesaysaveit.org.
The top lawyer for Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Minnesota has left the agency. Chief Counsel Jim Stolle retired after 31 years of service. Minnesota courts have been overwhelmed with immigration cases since the Trump administration began its enforcement surge. Last week, an ICE attorney was fired after telling a judge that the job sucks because of the crushing workload and the government's inability to comply with court orders. Stolle has not publicly addressed the circumstances of his departure.
In big media news, President Trump is urging the Department of Justice and the Federal Communications Commission to complete a deal that will merge media companies Nexstar and Tegna. The proposed $6.2 billion deal would violate FCC limits on television station ownership. Conservatives, including Newsmax's CEO, has said this is a dangerous merger that could, quote, limit competition, harm conservative voices, and increase cable bills. Approval from the DOJ and FCC is needed for this merger to pass.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi plans to endorse Jack Shillisburg in his run for a hotly contested House seat. Shillisburg, John F. Kennedy's grandson, and a cousin of his, of HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., announced his run in the Democratic primary to represent New York's 12th congressional district last November. He has become known for his viral videos on social media calling for Democratic Party reforms. The seat is currently held by Democratic Representative Jerry Nadler, who's represented the New York City district since 1992.
Well, here's a new one. The Trump administration is planning its first meeting of the Board of Peace this month. It is slated for February 19th and will be held at the U.S. Institute of Peace, which President Trump has renamed after himself.
The board originally pitched as a limited body task with overseeing the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. However, its mission has expanded to tackle conflicts around the world.
The gathering will be the first time the group has met since its signing ceremony at the World Economic Forum last month. Around 24 countries have signed aboard.
The group has been met with questions about whether it is trying to replace the European Union. Most of the U.S. European allies have not agreed to join. The upcoming meeting comes as the administration works to push forward the phase 2 of its peace plan for Gaza. The Milan Olympics are in full swing. Hear what Olympians representing the U.S. have to say after the break.
To my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Welcome back into Talking Points. Well, the games have begun. The 2026 Milan Olympics kicked off with its opening ceremonies on Friday. When Team USA entered San Siro Stadium, they were met with cheers, but just a few seconds later, Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife were greeted with boos while they briefly appeared on screen.
Athletes competing for Team USA are also speaking up about what representing the United States means right now in this climate. Here's what Olympic skier Hunter Hess had to say.
I think it's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. If it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
President Trump responded, calling Hess, quote, a real loser on Truth Social. Hess responded to Trump on Instagram, writing, I love my country. The best part of the Olympics is that it brings people together, and when so many of us are divided, we need that more than ever. So, Alex, I mean, this is kind of crazy because Hunter Hess is not the only Olympian to speak out. Just last week, actually, Chris Lillis, who is also another Olympic skier, also came out saying that he doesn't like the tension surrounding federal immigration enforcement, especially after the 2 shootings that happened in Minnesota.
Yeah, and I think it's just really interesting to see it's coming to fruition at this Olympics because time and time again, I mean, there's been Olympics held in Russia and China at points in those countries where there's been such big conflicts, geopolitical, between the U.S. and them, and stuff like this hasn't really happened before.
Right.
I think there's points on both sides. Obviously, the athletes want to talk and they want to be able to speak about themselves, but also you do want the athletes to have their own stage and be able to focus on the athletics. So hopefully in the next couple of days, this can all be figured out and the focus can go back to the sports.
Definitely. And I also believe that, with the Olympics, some of the world's best athletes in the entire, world, of course, I think that with it, how athletes are really taking this opportunity to be advocates, not just only within their own home countries, but also just what's happening all across the world. I do understand, though, that when you are representing a brand, obviously Team USA is the brand, you would like there to be a sort of cohesiveness and not that anyone would be speaking out against that. But again, that's the beauty of sports and why athletes have the opportunity to have that stage.
I do think one interesting thing to keep in mind, especially with the rise of social media in 2026, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee has said there's been an uptick in hate comments and hate words towards these athletes online. So especially when things do get more political and we don't know which direction this is headed, that's certainly something to monitor, not only for the online, but the physical safety of these athletes.
Definitely. I could not agree more. And I just hope that, we still have a long way to go with the Olympics. So I hope that everything continues just to be a safe and fun experience for, everyone involved.
Plenty of action to come in Milan, but that's all the time we have for you tonight on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to keep up with us on social media. My name's Alex Burstein.
And I'm Andrea-Rose. Have a great night, Syracuse.